Ever since I got the camper on the truck, pretty much all of my trips have been fairly short, close to home, in the mountains that aren't too far from Eugene, and always in forest. Finally had the opportunity to take more than just a weekend trip, but not a full week. So I'm taking the opportunity to hit some spots that are a little too far away for a weekend trip, but a little too close for like a week-long trip. So I've always seen this mountain, just this lone mountain that sticks up out of the desert, and I see it when I'm heading out into Eastern Oregon, and I see it when I'm coming home, and I always say to myself, one day I gotta check that out, and so I'm gonna go check it out. Yesterday, I headed out into the mountains with my friend Whit from Grizzly's Granola, and we got up into the Cascades a little bit, got up into some snow. If you haven't seen that episode, it was a bit more adventure than we had bargained for, but it was a lot of fun, really beautiful country also, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. Well, this is a surprise. I wasn't expecting this. It almost looks like it was some sort of water reservoir. It's round and it's mortared in, so I don't think it was some kind of corral. Oh yeah, and here's like a pipe coming from somewhere. Maybe that brought the water from somewhere. Or maybe there's a well in there. Lots of old tin cans. Closer to home, it's often hard to find much in the way of, historic remnants like that, just because so much was constructed out of wood, and it all just, breaks down in the wet Western Oregon climate. So it's fun out here in the desert to find stuff that's just been here for decades and decades, even, 100 years. I don't really have a plan out here today. I'm just gonna explore this area and see what I see, and whatever looks interesting, I'm driving it. I was gonna keep going on the wider road I was on before, but now I'm on this little 2-track because I noticed it goes up to some sort of little draw or something, and sort of looks like a more damp area, and it's kind of up elevated, and maybe some place where someone might have homesteaded. Now I'm driving across a bit of private land here, but it looks like up there where I'm headed is actually public land, so should be just fine. Map shows there being actually an old road cutting across up here, but looks like maybe it was there, it's just overgrown. Maybe this is where the water for that reservoir came from. Oh yeah, so maybe not a homestead site after all. You can see here where the dirt's been mounded up, I think to catch water coming down out of, if there's a spring in there, and so it was probably collected here. Then it looks like it was also piped down to that reservoir further down that we just saw. Wow, what a beautiful day to be out in the desert. It's still green out here from our pretty wet spring, and it's warm in the sun, but there's a nice cool breeze blowing, and so I don't feel excessively hot. Very nice. It seems to be nap time out here, so when in Rome. Before this trip, I managed to get my little couch partially built so I'd have a spot to grab a quick cat nap without popping the camper. I'm wrapping around the base of that mountain I showed you before. There are several roads that head up its flanks, though most do appear to be dead-end spurs. Well, I can see on the map this is just a dead-end spur. It's about a mile up in here. Looks like it goes up in there someplace, and I just can't tell what might be up in here. It just seems worth exploring. This road must go somewhere.
It's mid-June, and the normally subdued hue of the desert is currently sprinkled with tiny but vivid dapples of color everywhere you look, a surprising variety of flowers among the usual vegetation of sagebrush and juniper.
Well, this is amazing. After all of that big, crazy climb up into here, I found, well, not really anything. Decent place to camp. You don't really have much of a view, and it's windy, so I probably wouldn't camp here. Well, you just never really know unless you drive up those trails and see. Sometimes you make awesome discoveries, and sometimes it's just okay. People ask me how I find the places I find, and this is part of it, you know. Sometimes I drive up these things and there's something really cool or an amazing view, and sometimes not. I do think I am going to quite enjoy the view on the way down. I think this is going to be spectacular.
Back down in the flat desert, I'm trying to connect to a different road that looks like it might get to the summit. Oh, seriously?
Yeah, so I don't know, that sign was kind of ambiguous. I mean, it just said private property, and I mean, I knew it was on private property. That corresponded with the map. I've been on a bunch of pieces of private property today, and the roads just go through. It's the first time I've seen anything that had any kind of signage. You know, it didn't say no trespassing, it didn't say, you know, whatever. So, you know, I don't know. I would hate to like let myself through a gate that says private property and then come across the property owner and have him say, "What are you doing here?" So I zipped back out to the highway because there was just no other way around to the roads that go up the mountain. And so I had to do a short little stint up the highway, got back off at the first opportunity, and just kind of working my way back across and see if I can get on up.
This isn't the route I intended to take, but on the map, it looks like it should get me to the top. This seems to be getting through, but the road ahead goes startlingly straight up the slope rather than cutting across as you more typically see. We're not at the top yet. This is just a saddle between the main peak and a lower secondary peak. I've reconnected with the road to the summit, a much more manageable gravel road certainly used by the trucks that come up to service the numerous antennae installed at the top. As I work my way up the final switchbacks, extraordinary vistas appear in every direction. Looks like I'll have to hike the final, 20 feet to the summit. What an absolutely incredible panorama. And finally, I've got my feet on this peak I've admired from afar for years.
So I guess the way I came up to the top was not the conventional route, because I found a different way going down, and it's a nice, smooth, graded gravel road.
I'm down off the mountain and have veered onto another side road. There's another butte here, but I think I've done enough climbing for today. At this point, I'm just truly wandering, turning whichever direction looks interesting, and starting to keep my eye out for a campsite. Paused here to check out a rock formation jutting out of this hill. From up around the corner on the road, it looked a little more interesting. Ultimately, it's not really anything special, but at least it got me out of the driver's seat for a bit.
Well, it has been a day. I just spent about an hour trying to find a campsite that was a little more sheltered. This is a beautiful spot, rock formations there, amazing view down there. I'm obviously getting some wind coming up here, and I found this spot, and then I went on, I moved on, I went down a bunch of roads trying to find a campsite that was, you know, not so exposed. But every place that I stopped, already there were almost no places at all to get off this little road. And the ones that I did find, it was just as windy. So might as well just enjoy the view. I'll just forego the campfire tonight.
As the sun settles in the west, the sky entertains me with an ever-changing display of color and clouds. Ever since I got the Topo Toppers Mesa camper, I've regularly received suggestions of adding some kind of shock cord around the tent to help collapse it. Topo Toppers does put this on their Badlander camper, but they've opted not to on the Mesa. It would interfere with the large rear window of the tent, but also it really just isn't necessary. I don't have to fight the tent material at all. It just takes a quick tuck on each side, and it easily packs away in literally seconds. The wind did not let off last night or this morning, so I'm going to drop down into the valley below and look for a more sheltered spot to make some coffee and breakfast. Then move on to the next leg of my journey up through some national forest land I've never explored before. Subscribe now so you don't miss an episode, and thank you for watching.